The Kampfpanzer III Projekt 7 HK, which is an extremely long name for a tank that is interesting. This tank takes a siege mode idea from what the STRVs are with the Swedish tank destroyer line, and then implements it into a way that makes it more useful, but also at the same time more annoying. Before we go ahead and jump into the stats, this is just a reminder that yes, you have until the 20th of December 2024 to claim your vehicles for tokens, if you haven't already done it. So as always, we're going to be first looking at the base values, which is not affected by crew, equipment, or anything like that. This is just the raw stock values of the vehicle. And then we'll be moving into setting up the tank, where I'll be going through the equipment, the field mods, the crew skills, although the crew skills will be in game. But I'll be showing you how everything affects this vehicle. So straight away, 3,176 DPM, which is insane. However, this DPM is only when you're not in siege mode. When you are in siege mode, it then goes down to 2,273 DPM, which is, don't get me wrong, for a stock thing, it's not too bad. Like, obviously, equipment's going to boost this up, but the difference in the DPM is absolutely massive. And you will be wanting to enter siege mode, because even though that this tank can be played without going into siege mode, it's really not very nice. However, what is quite nice is the standard pen at 268mm, and then the premium rounds at 320 heat rounds. Now, the premium rounds don't go as fast as the standard rounds. The standard rounds go at 1,480 show velocity, and then the premium rounds go at only 1,020. However, it's a heat round. That's still pretty fast for a heat round. Most heat rounds are around about 900-ish, so this is pretty good. The HE on this tank is 120mm a pen with 1020 shell velocity, exactly the same as the heat round, and you have 460 alpha. That is a full 100 above what the alpha damage is of the other two shells. You have 360 alpha, which makes this DPM quite nice in the sweet spot, but then obviously once you go into siege mode, yeah, it kind of ruins it. The reload time is 6.8 in the standard mode, and then in the siege mode, 9.5. However, you would have seen the big thing that siege mode does affect, and that is the accuracy of this vehicle. You have 0.35 base dispersion, but then in the siege mode, you have 0.25. Your aiming time also goes down to 1.5 seconds from 2.5 seconds. Dispersion factors are absolutely fine, and when you do enter siege mode, they go up. However, you're moving a lot slower, so this isn't as noticeable, but just keep that in mind. You have 65 top speed and 23 in reverse, and that is without siege mode, and then with siege mode, you're then going at 20 top speed and 18 in reverse. So you do lose a lot of DPM, you lose a lot of speed, but you gain accuracy and the ability to actually aim properly. And we'll move into that in a second. Effective top speed is more than fine. This is going to go up with field mods and crew skills. That's not a problem at all. You should be going maximum speed on hard and medium terrain. That won't be an issue. However, the gun elevation is 17 and 3 degrees of gun depression when you're outside of siege mode. And this is what I was saying about aiming properly, because you don't get anything in regards to aiming with this vehicle when you're outside of siege mode. You basically have to turn your tank and then your gun is fixed. Whereas with siege mode, it's almost like you have a turret. This tank is by no means as bad as the STRVs, where you can't really do anything with your mouse when you're aiming and you're not in siege mode. But this, when you can aim, it's just you have no gun depression. Whereas if you do use the siege mode, you then get plus 9 degrees of gun elevation and 9 degrees of gun depression, which means that you're going to have plus 26 degrees of gun elevation and minus 12 degrees of gun depression, which is really very good. Hull armor is good and bad, but we're going to move on into that in a second. The hull armor, you may look at this and think it has 45mm of hull armor. This is useless. It's not. We'll show you the armor models in a second. It works exactly the same as the STRVs does, because they are angled so well. You get ricochet angles. It has 1,450 health, which is actually the lowest health of any tier 9 tank destroyer in the game, but not too far off what the lowest is. 1,500 seems to be the joint lowest kind of area, so it's a little bit worse for wear in that regard. And actually, in comparison to what an STRV is, that has 1,500, so it's kind of in line for what it should be. You have 22.8% camo and 13.6 on the move. However, your view range is pretty awful at 350. Moving into the armor layout, and this is what I was talking about with the ricochet angles. It is just an auto bounce, because remember, anything with AP and APCR, if you are shooting at an angle that is greater than 70 degrees, you will have an auto ricochet. And this is effectively 75 degrees right here. Obviously, if they then go and expose their flat sides, because it's very much like a wedge, whereas if they then start bowing down, you'll then be able to go and pen them. If you do have heat, however, this is just an auto pen. Pretty much everywhere on the tank, because it doesn't care so much about the ricochet angles. That is 85 degrees that you need to get up to if you want to auto ricochet with heat. So if you do meet one of these and you do have heat rounds, 100% just go and use these, because it makes your life so much easier. However, if you only have AP or APCR, then the best bet is to go for the back over here, where you have the two kind of sticky out bit cupolas. If we just go to the visual model, you'll see you've got one up here and one a machine gun. Do not ever shoot the machine gun. That is not a hitbox. But just below that, you should be able to hit it. You also need to be careful of the lower plate, because that is, again, an auto ricochet angle at certain angles like this. But if you aim directly in the middle of the lower plate, you should pen every time. And if this tank is fully hold down and you can't see this lower plate, then the only way that you're going to pen it is underneath the tracks, or just above the tracks under the hole right here or here. But that is a tiny shot. It's one of the things that really does annoy me about this tank, or these tanks in general, the STRVs included, that if you don't have a heat round, these are some of the most bullshit tanks to deal with. Because you could be the best player in the world, but if that thing is facing like this, you just have to get lucky and hit up here. Because no, flanking is not always an option in World of Tanks, especially with a free corridor design. Now moving on to the tank setup, and we're just going to go ahead and add on all the crew skills. Don't worry, I'll go through all the crew skills in-game in just a moment. And also, Tanks GG has not updated yet, where it shows all of the crew skills, where you have the active abilities on certain things. So as you can see, with all the crew skills added, this is what the tank looks like without Siege mode, and then this is what it looks like with Siege mode. You'll notice that the biggest buff right here is the camo rating, which has gone all up to 46% when stationary and 29% when moving. This is very, very good. And it does beg the question, does it really need armor if it's meant to be a sniper? So let's go ahead and put food on the vehicle. Let's go ahead and put on what we would like to play with, which is going to be vents, rammer, and a turbo. And now we're up to 4,172 DPM without Siege mode, and then with Siege mode, we have 2,986. Now that's by no means bad DPM, but when you compare it to what you just could have had, it's quite bad. And the worst thing is that it's got 0.3 dispersion, but the gun is not really very usable in this state without Siege mode, and that's what really brings it back. You also have 70 top speed and 28 in reverse, and then when you do enter Siege mode, you then have 25 top speed and 21 in reverse. You almost go just as fast in reverse as you do forwards. Now let's go ahead and add in the field mods, where we're going to go for the left, right, which is what you should do for every single tank destroyer in the game. It doesn't even matter if it's an E25, you should always pick the view range rather than concealment after firing, because it's irrelevant. For number 7, you then go for the reload time, which is the left-hand side. This is mainly because when you're in then the Siege mode, you get more DPM. Because with 3000 DPM, combined with 0.22 dispersion, that's quite nice. However, it would be nicer if this kind of DPM could be pushed up to what the, say, STRV 1030 could be, which is around about 3.5. However, you are a lot more accurate than the STRV, so that does make up for it. So that means that with all of this combined, you bomb it around at 70, you have 4,300 DPM when you're not in Siege mode, you then have 3,000 when you are in Siege mode, your accuracy dispersion is pretty good at 0.31 when you're not in it, and have 0.22 when you are in it, and yeah, 417 meters view range. The only thing that you might want to maybe trade out is for vents, and then put optics in there, because the turbo is kind of a must-have when you're in the Siege mode, because it just makes it a lot nicer. And then also the rammer is the rammer. You need the rammer on this tank. I don't care what you say. So if you do feel like you do need more view range, drop the vents, get optics. You should be good. And if you're a smelly peasant and you don't use food, then you're going to have to drop the turbo for optics to get the view range. But be warned, you've just lost a grand total of 5 kilometers an hour in the Siege mode. So for the crew skills, obviously, Brothers in Arms, repairs, and camo. The gold standard of any tank that needs to have camo in the game. For the commander, recon, emergency, mentor. The other ones, not really that useful, especially when you're going to have such good aim time in the Siege mode. If you are sniping, for example, the coordination is pretty useless, in my opinion, for that. And the other two, not really very helpful. For the driver, off-road driving, because even though that the train distances are quite good, it's always good to boost them up even further. That then affects the traverse speed as well. Then also you want to have clutch braking, because this is obviously a turretless TD. Yeah, turning faster is going to help you out, especially if you're trying to get circled. And then finally, it's between controlled impact and engineer. I actually think engineer is a little bit better for this tank. One, because it just makes it go faster, but two, because it reduces the penalty to a damaged engine by 20%. And since this is German, it's probably going to get its engine knocked out at some stage. For the radio operator, situational awareness, firefighting, and then whatever you really want. When I was playing this tank, I actually picked signal interception, I think. I don't fully remember, but this one is also quite nice if you're going to be on your own somewhere where you don't really rely on the spotting, or if you're going to be sitting next to another tank destroyer. For the bonus perks, you might as well choose Snapshot, choose Deadeye, and then Armorer, because the other ones are not really that useful, and anybody that tells me concentration is useful for this tank, no. And then for the loader, we have safe stowage, intuition, and ammo tuning. Okay, so welcome to Overlord, where this tank on this map is actually not too bad, because once we do enter siege mode, and I forgot to mention, it's 3 seconds in and out of siege mode. Yeah, it's not fast. Not fast at all to get in and out of siege mode, and sometimes when you do want to run away, for example, if you are within siege mode and then you get rushed, and you think, I'll just quickly go out of siege mode now. Yeah, that's not going to happen. There's nothing quickly about going out of siege mode in this tank. But as you can see, on this ridgeline, you're then able to actually peek up, use all the siege mode to your advantage with that gun depression, and then take the shot, pull back down. Especially with a turbo in the siege mode, it just makes it so much nicer to play. While we're getting tickled by a Shelmer. But he's never going to pen that. As long as you actually angle up a little bit, he's never going to pen that. Unless he goes for the lower plate, in which case he might be able to do that. I think he can. But as you can see on this ridgeline, we're peeking up, we're not showing too much. And I think one of the biggest factors for me, when I was actually looking at this tank for the very first time, I was very worried about this machine gun port at the top here. And I thought that this was a hitbox. Obviously it's not. We don't have to worry about that. We can then just peek up freely. And it's kind of hard for them to pen you, as you saw with the armor model. When you are fully hold down, there's very little that they can actually shoot. But so far, 1,450 damage. We're now going to be trying to have a little look around the map, because I would like to go and kill this lurver, but I don't know what's behind the lurver. And usually there's plenty of people behind him. Right now, the Charger 4 hasn't been spotted, the SU-130PM hasn't been spotted, and the T-103 hasn't been spotted. But we do know for a fact that there is a Conway over that way, so it's probably not worth pushing the lurver, because then we're going to receive a lot of damage. So back to where we just were. We're back in siege mode, and we're going to see what we can see. Leo PTA? Very nice. This does 360 alpha, I think, is the real nice sweet spot for fast DPM tanks. And if this didn't have 360 alpha, I don't think that it would be as good. Maybe if it had 390 alpha, but then you'd have to obviously go down the reload time. And I don't think that's going to be worth it. Though I think that 360 alpha with a 7-second reload, it's not awful, but it's definitely not good. Like, it's not up to the standard of, like I said, with comparison to the STRV 1030. However, when you compare this tank to the STRV 1030, you really do start to see that where it's lacking in DPM, you then make up for with an accuracy. And I think that the accuracy bonus that this tank gets in siege mode compared to what the STRV gets, yeah, if anybody has played the STRV 1030, you know for a fact that tank really does go anywhere but where you aim it sometimes. And now we're out of siege mode, you can see I have no gun depression. This is aiming without siege mode. It's so annoying to actually try and aim at someone without siege mode, because you have no gun depression. The gun doesn't move. The whole entire tank moves when you're in siege mode. So you only have a very, very limited up and down and barely anything left or right. So yeah, look, trying to get a shot out. It goes miles wide anyway. And you're trying to aim at the Conway here. Put another one in. Imagine if this was the DPM though in siege mode. It would be so broken. Imagine 0.22 accuracy with 4,300 DPM. That would be absolutely broken. But luckily it's not. Okay, like I think that they've actually balanced this tank out very, very well. And even though that it's not super, super competitive within the siege mode, I think that it's balanced. I don't think that it needs a buff. I don't think that it needs anything touched to it. I think that I would like to personally see that the armor gets changed, but that's beyond the point. This tank can snipe. This tank can brawl. It's just... you have to then think about how much it costs. And it costs 28 tokens. 28 tokens for this tank is mental. You could get so many more tanks for that price that it doesn't make sense to actually choose this vehicle. However, if you are looking for a vehicle that is quite unique, then yes, this tank is very unique. And if you're a tank collector and you've looked at all the other ones and you thought, well, I can get all the other ones at some point, none of them really, you know, fill me with, I instantly want to go and get it, and you're just looking for something that is a unique vehicle, then this is probably the most unique vehicle out of the entire lot. But that doesn't mean that it's good. And I think that for most people, this tank isn't good. I think that this tank, most people, I would say the 90% of players will struggle heavily in this tank. Because, especially how the maps are, a lot of them you can't really afford to just snipe. Because either your team wins very, very fast and then you're chasing damage, or your team loses, and in which case, yeah, you could snipe, but then you're probably going to get spotted. I also messed up the ram here. I'm very sad. But going back to the whole team situation, in that kind of scenario, it's great. You know, I out DPM the guy. He's never going to beat me in reload with an SU. And I think that a lot of people will just either play this tank purely as a siege mode tank like they would with the STRV, or they either just go straight in and just YOLO and try and do as much damage as they can without going to siege mode. I don't think there's any in between for this vehicle. And if you do play in between though, that's when this tank becomes a bit special and you become a lot more aware of what the tank can and can't do. Because once you establish what the tank can and can't do, you can then play around that. And yeah, it's got less DPM in siege mode, but it's accurate. And you can get around the map. You have 70 top speed. This is like, it's super fast. But then again, it's still annoying to go in and out of siege mode every single time. Especially like this, where I can't choose which one I want to go in. It's quite a long intermission time, let's say, to switch in and out of it. But in this game, we've got 5 kills, 4.4k damage, nearly 4.5k damage. There's just an E75 remaining. He was last spotted on 400 health, so we're going to try and see what we can do. We'll just speed this up, because we do not know where Mr. E75 has gone. He is up there, he takes out the Barask, and hopefully if we come all the way up, we're just chasing the even 90 at this stage. But up around here, here he is. And we obviously have heat loaded at this stage. Actually, I don't even know if we have heat loaded. I don't know what we have loaded because the replay is a little bit bugged. But yeah, we had APCR loaded. But yeah, 4.7k, not too bad at all. So as you saw, 4,700 damage, 6 kills, 387 assistance, which is nothing. Mastery badge, we get a top gun and also high caliber. Top on the damage, top on the XP, top on the kills. Lovely stuff. So no, by no means is this a bad tank. I think that it takes a lot of skill to be able to master it, and I think that most players should avoid this thing because of the fact that it is quite a high skill cap tank. However, if you are used to the STRV line, then you will enjoy this thing. It's just a little bit different in a few ways, mainly that you do become a lot faster in siege mode than you would in, say, like an STRV, and you also then have a little bit more flexibility without siege mode than you would in the STRVs. It would have been nice to see a little bit more DPM, although I can understand that you gain a lot more accuracy in regards to what the equivalent tier STRV would have. And not to mention that, yes, this tank is very, very well armored in comparison to what the STRV is as well. which is actually something I forgot to mention during the armor profile. So if you watch this far, you get a bonus tip. This tank has 45mm of armor on the upper bit where it's very, very sloped. And that means that you're not going to get overmatched by 122 caliber guns like you would with the STRV 1030. So that is why this tank has better armor. And that means that it can brawl a little bit better. So take that into consideration as well. But the biggest problem with this tank is the token cost, as I said in game. 28 tokens is a monumental price for what you're getting. And in my personal opinion, I would avoid this tank and then wait for it to come down in price, maybe next battle pass, and then go and get it. Because that's usually what happens. The older tanks go down in price, the newer tanks go up in price. So have a little look, see what you think. Maybe it's for you, maybe it's worth 28 tokens for you. Let me know your thoughts down below. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. And then we'll be moving into setting up the tank and other and then we'll be moving into setting up the tank, how I would set it up, and then we'll be moving on to setting up the tank and how I would set it up. Me. And then we'll be moving into setting up the tank, how I'm going to set it up. Sake. And if you're not using food for whatever reason, then when you drop that, you're going to have to drop the turbo if you actually want to have the... Instead, what you'd like to have is clutch braking and... Sake!